Critique of Pure Reason, translated by Max Muller, edition 1881, Introduction, Section 2, page 56. What we insist on, therefore, is the empirical reality of time, that is, its objective validity with reference to all objects which can ever come before our senses. So he says that in addition to being something subjective and a priori, he says time also has an empirical reality, because the objective validity of time implies the possibility of an object even appearing before us to our senses. And as our intuition must at all times be sensuous, no object can ever fall under our experience that does not come under the conditions of time. So he says that time is that condition under which any object can appear before our senses. So time is an empirical condition as well, in addition to being an a priori condition of possibility of experience of an object. What we deny that time has any claim on absolute reality, so that without taking into account the form of our sensuous condition, it should by itself be a condition or quality inherent in things. For such qualities which belong to things by themselves can never be given to us through the senses. So he says that time has no absolute reality because time is something that is inherent. It is a quality that is inherent in a thing, in an object. And that inherent quality is not given to us through our senses, because that inherent quality exists in things by themselves. And time is not that form of the sensuous condition. Time is not the form of the object received as phenomenon in intuition. Time is a condition or quality that exists in things by themselves. This is what constitutes the transcendental ideality of time, so that if we take no account of the subjective conditions of our sensuous intuitions, time is nothing and cannot be added to the objects by themselves without their relation to our intuition, whether as subsisting or inherent. So he's saying that the fact that time is a quality which is inherent in an object gives time a transcendental ideality, in the sense that that quality being present in the object makes possible the intuition of the object. So if we do not take into account the subjective condition under which we perceive things, then time is nothing. But since there is a certain quality that exists inherently in an object, gives time the objective validity, if not absolute reality. So this ideality of time, however, as well as that of space, should not be confounded with the deceptions of our sensations, because in their case we always suppose that the phenomenon to which such predicates belong has objective reality, which is not at all the case here, except so far as this objective reality is purely empirical, that is, so far as the object itself is looked upon as a mere phenomenon. So he says that the ideality of space and time should not be confused with the deceptions of our senses, in the sense that space and time are not empirical, are not qualities of an object which are purely empirical. They are objective. They are objectively valid. Both space and time are objectively valid, but they are not purely empirical, in the sense that the existence of space and time does not depend on our senses. The existence of space and time does not depend on the object affecting our senses, though space and time are conditions under which an object can appear to us and can affect us. So on this subject, see a previous note in section 1 on space. Explanation. Against this theory, which claims empirical but denies absolute and transcendental reality to time, even intelligent men have protested so unanimously that I suppose that every reader who is unaccustomed to these considerations may naturally be of the same opinion. So he says that the theory which supports the idea that time has absolute and transcendental reality and denies that time has any empirical reality is difficult for people to grasp because obviously he defines time as a quality which exists both in an object as well as in the subject. For example, the quality of order or the quality of being orderly arranged of an object. For instance, the orderly arrangement of an object exists in an object by itself, but in order to perceive it as a particular order, there is a need of a subjective quality, and that subjective quality itself is time. So he says that this order, the objective reality of order in an object and the subjective quality of the individual to recognize such an order has an absolute and transcendental reality, whereas it is not an empirical phenomenon. And this idea is difficult to understand. What they object to is this: changes, they say, are real. This is proved by the change of our own representations, even if all external phenomena and their changes be denied. So he says that changes are real, changes are empirical. So without recognizing change in an empirical scenario, change doesn't exist. Change is not a transcendental or pure or a priori phenomenon. So changes, however, are possible in time only, and therefore time must be something real. So he says that people who cannot understand the transcendental ideality of time refer to time as merely change. But he says time is not just change, which can be referred as happening in an external phenomenon. Change is not merely an empirical phenomenon. Change does not depend on the senses, and time is not just change. The answer, he says, is easy enough. I grant the whole argument. Time certainly is something real, namely the real form of our internal intuition. So he says time is real in the sense that it is a form of our internal intuition, in the sense that time is like order, because order is real. It is a fact that an object has an order within itself. And time is that ability to recognize order in external phenomenon. So time therefore has subjective reality with regard to internal experience, that is, I really have the representation of time and my determinations in it. So he says time has a subjective reality, because in order to perceive certain qualities in an object, time is needed, and time is a subjective phenomenon. And since what time recognizes in an object does in fact exist in the object, this gives time also an objective reality. So, time therefore is to be considered as real, not so far as it is an object, but so far as it is the representation of myself as an object. So, he says that time is real not because time is something that exists inside the object, but time is a representation of myself as an object. In the sense that if I can see order in an object, this means, and that order inherently is present in an object, this means I am representing myself as an object in the orderly arrangement of the real object. So if either I myself or any other being could see me without this condition of sensibility, then these self-same determinations, which we now represent to ourselves as changes, would give us a kind of knowledge in which the representation of time and therefore of change also would have no place. So he says that the fact that I can grasp the orderly arrangement of an object in a subjective manner, and different people have different ways of perceiving that order, because for instance I can see a group of flowers, and I can believe and I can perceive that group as being ordered in different manners, and some other person could perceive the order in a different way. So he says that out if we do not consider this subjective quality of seeing change or seeing order in objects, then time doesn't exist, because that the subjective way of perceiving things is itself time. And since time and since grasping something such as order means that we have grasped a change, an objectively real change in an object, this implies that change has been grasped by time, and change itself is time. But so from the outside, time looks like change, but from inside, time looks like a representation of myself as an object. So there remains therefore the empirical reality of time only as the condition of all our experience, which absolute reality cannot, according to what has just been shown, be conceded to it. So he says that time also has empirical reality because it is a condition of all our experience, but it has no absolute reality. So time is nothing but the form of our own internal intuition. Take away the peculiar condition of our sensibility, and the idea of time vanishes, because it is not inherent in the objects, but in the subject only that perceives them. So here he defines time perfectly by saying that time is our peculiar way of perceiving an object. For instance, time is analogous to the manner in which you perceive an object. For instance, if you look at it from a front view or a top view or a side view. So if you look at an object from a front view and some other person looks at the object from top view, both of your perceptions, both the manner in which the same object appears to you may be different, and there itself lies the quality of time. And the reason he says we perceive similar things in a different manner, we perceive things based on our sensibility, based on our subjectivity, is time itself. The reason why this objection is raised so unanimously, and even by those who have nothing very tangible to say against the doctrine of the ideality of space, is this: they could never hope to prove apodictically the absolute reality of space, because they are confronted by idealism, which has shown that the reality of external objects does not admit of strict proof, while the reality of object of our internal perceptions, the perception of my own self and of my own status, is clear immediately through our consciousness. So he says that one reason the transcendental reality of time has been rejected is idealism, and people who support idealism cannot grant absolute reality to space. So he says they could never hope to prove apodictically the absolute reality of space because they are confronted by idealism, which has shown that the reality of external objects does not admit of strict proof, while the reality of the object of our internal perceptions, the perception of my own self and my own status, is clear immediately through our consciousness. So he says that people who deny transcendental reality of time also deny absolute reality to space because they say that our predispositions about the nature of external objects is the only thing that exists, and they deny the reality of the object of our internal perceptions. They deny the manner in which we perceive an object. They deny the importance of the manner in which we perceive an object. And that distinction, the distinction between the reality of an external object and the distinction between the reality of an object of our internal perceptions, that is, the reality of our predispositions about the nature of the world, is given by consciousness because realism is not the same as idealism. So he says that idealists fail to grant transcendental ideality to time and absolute reality to space.